Hello, and welcome back to the Eastwick Conference's film breakdown series, where today I'm going to talk about this nationally televised showdown between Texas rivals in the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets, and about, in particular, Amen Thompson and how one halftime adjustment by the Spurs flipped this game on its head, and talk about him as a player through that lens. In the game, he had 25 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals, which sounds pretty good to me, but as we're going to see, the Spurs were able to really exploit some of his biggest deficiencies as a player, and it had real ripple effects throughout the rest of this Rockets offense in a kind of existential way. I want to start with a couple of clips from the first half, though, because I think they do a good job of demonstrating some of Thompson's strengths on the offensive end right now. To get it out of the way, obviously, this guy is a complete and utter non-shooter. Defenses have zero reservations about just sagging off of him, making him a jump shooter, crowding the lane for the rest of his teammates, but he does have ways to get around that. And in particular, I want you to notice who is guarding him on these plays. And those are similarly sized players. Here it's going to be Steph Castle. There's going to be a couple others as well. But for some reason, Steph goes over the screen here. That gives Amen this room to get to a floater, which is a shot he's a little more comfortable with these days, but we're going to come back to that specific shot as well. But here, this is his bread and butter. The Spurs botch the switch, and he just gets right downhill. This guy is the most athletic player in the league for my money, and he is absolutely effortless getting to the rim, finishing over the top of any contest. And so what defenses do more often than not, if you can't shoot and you're really good at getting downhill, that is guard him, quote unquote, by not guarding him. Steph Castle, you can see, is not going to get beyond the free throw line here as Amen works his way around the floor. He's playing this way to try to eat into that drive, either force him to take a jump shot, or when he gets downhill, try to stop him from getting all the way to the rim. The downside of that, when you're playing that far off of the most athletic player in the league, is you also give him runways to start stampeding you. Şengün sets a good screen here on Castle, but he has half the floor to attack, and he's able to finish over the top of a contest. And then a play like this, though, I think is a much more very typical possession you'll see teams trying to guard him. Carter Bryant, once again, is not going to get much farther out than the free throw line, sagging off of him, forcing him to meet him in the middle of the floor there and make him beat Bryant over the top as a jump shooter, which to Amen's credit he does. But again, these are concepts we're going to come back to. And then finally, something that Amen, I think, is freakishly good at, especially for a nominal point guard, is operating out of the dunker spot. So we see here, Durant has the ball, Champagne's guarding him, Şengün is one pass away below the rim, and Wembanyama is going to come over and double team. What that means is then Castle, who was guarding Amen, has to guard Şengün, and there have to be rotations behind that, which don't happen. Şengün makes a great above-the-head pass, and Amen is able to finish in the dunker spot. So he does have ways to work around his lack of shooting. He can operate closer to the basket. When teams give him driving lanes, he can really drive right into that space and finish over the top. And he is slowly developing a couple of other counters and the floater in that short mid-range area. But the second half completely flipped everything that he does on his head and shut down the Rockets' offense entirely. Now, you might be asking, what was the change that San Antonio made? And that was who is guarding Thompson. In the first half, we saw it. It was similarly sized players. It was guards. It was wing types. For the entire second half, it was either Victor Wembanyama or Luke Kornet. They decided, all right, we're just going to play you as a total non-shooter like we have been, but it hasn't been working in the first half. Now we're just going to ratchet it up another level. We're going to completely ignore you away from the ball, away from the basket, have your defender just helping out on your other best players. Get the ball out of their hands, make them take worse shots, and funnel the ball to you in positions that were really okay with you shooting. And as you're going to see, it really made the Rockets offense completely sputter out in a pretty painful way to watch. But before we get to that, I actually want to talk about some ways that Amen can still make this coverage pay. A bunch of these examples are actually just going to be bad defense by the Spurs that he was able to exploit. Here, Victor Wembanyama helps over too early, doesn't have an eye on his man. That gives him the entire middle of the floor to just cut and finish over the top. He's too athletic to let that happen here. He's going to set a little dribble handoff screen with Durant again. Wemby stunts out too far towards the ball, giving him this entire runway. Nobody's rotating over, and he's able to finish. Once again, now it's Luke Kornet caught up in this screen by Durant, and you're giving him the runway once again. And Luke Kornet gets murdered. That's a rough one to watch as a Spurs fan, but I love Amen Thompson, so it's okay. And then here, once again, you can see Luke Kornet helping on Durant, but this time Amen starts the possession cutting to the dunker spot where we just saw he has effectiveness. He's able to finish under the rim there as a release valve, and then also as an offensive rebounder where you see Şengün airballs it. and he's able to make them pay. But what I want you to notice from that possession is they scored, but look at Şengün. You have Castle guarding Şengün. It's either going to be Castle or Keldon Johnson for most of the half. And Şengün is so scared of Victor Wembanyama, who instead of being the guy on the ball guarding him, now gets to be a second body roaming in help, that he has to settle for that shot that doesn't even touch the rim. That was the crux of the Spurs defense. So here, okay, Keldon Johnson. Luke Cornett is helping over. You are getting the ball out of Şengün's hands as the team's primary low post scorer, and you're saying, okay, Amen's going to catch it here. He's going to take these floaters. We are okay with that. He made the shot there again. This time he's not going to make it. He's going to give the ball to Şengün. Wemby's right there. He's scared. He gives it back up. They're saying, all right, we are going to sell out on you completely. Beat us with your floaters. Beat us with your jump shots. And we're going to bet that it's not going to happen. And then on the possessions like we saw earlier, where you have a defender really far back in that drop or just sagging off completely, and you give him this driving lane to attack, it doesn't quite hit the same when you're driving into a 7-footer versus a guy that you're actually taller than. Here, he does exactly what he did with Steph Castle, albeit without a screen as timely placed, but he's forced to take another little awkward floater that he misses. Again, that's a win for the Spurs defense. Here, we have Şengün driving, Keldon Johnson on him, Wembanyama pulled over, Amen tries to cut behind the play, but Wemby is able to recover and block the shot. You are taking the ball out of Alperen Şengün's hands in these possessions. The team's second leading scorer, second most important offensive player. A lot of these possessions, Durant isn't on the floor, so he is the offensive focal point. And the Spurs are saying, all right, no more, you're done. And they're doing that by ignoring Amen and by forcing him to try to make them pay. The other way that that really burns them is by turning him into a jump shooter. Here, the possession completely stalls out, the defense comes over, and you force him to take a shot that gets blocked. Here, same possession actually, you inbound the ball, and you're forcing him to take a jump shot. He misses. This guy is a terrible jump shooter. I hate to say it, but it's true. Here, he sets the screen. They do a good job blowing up the Durant action, and he has to catch and he has to shoot the ball. Wembanyama, on all of those plays, is in the paint. Wemby doesn't care at all what Amen is going to do when he catches the ball here. He's just waiting for Durant to get it back and to potentially come up there, or saying, okay, do exactly what you're going to do. That's a win for us. In the fourth quarter of this game, Amen Thompson shot 1 for 7. The Rockets as a team shot 4 for 23. And this is the reason why. They flipped the matchups and they forced him to beat them as a release valve in ways that he is not comfortable being a release valve in. He's not in the dunker spot as much. He's not rolling to the basket as much. He is the one that is going to catch the ball when Durant gets to, when Şengün gets to, and he's going to be left open so you can't recreate an advantage in any other way other than one that is dictated on the Spurs' terms. And the other side of the coin here that's really just as important as noting that Amen Thompson went 1 for 7 in the fourth is that in that fourth quarter, Alperen Şengün went 0 for 5 and Kevin Durant went 1 for 4. So not only did the Spurs end up giving these guys a lot of tough looks that they couldn't convert, they got the ball out of their hands enough to the point where the guy they wanted shooting all the shots was shooting all the shots and missing anyway. I want to start with Şengün here because I think that this is a uniquely bad situation for him, considering his skills as a player. This guy is a real post operator, but finishing in general is not his strongest suit. It really never has been throughout his career. For all the things he does great, I hate to say that's not one of them. But for this entire fourth, it was either Steph Castle, we're going to see here, or Keldon Johnson later, guarding him on the ball, and Wembanyama gets to lurk right under the paint. Şengün knows that. He can't get all the way to the rim. He doesn't want to get all the way to the rim. And so what's going to end up happening is you're dealing with all this physicality by a smaller player who they both did a fantastic job just playing up and really being aggressive on the ball. And with the threat of the best rim protector in basketball behind it, you're going to see a lot of really tough shots pretty far away from the basket from Şengün. That floater is closer to the free throw line than the restricted area. Here, Steph, fantastic job bodying up. Victor is just this ever-present threat, forces a really tough fadeaway that really had no chance. This time it's Keldon Johnson, and he turns and just goes right up to this shot. In a normal situation, you probably would have taken another dribble or two here, but because Victor is there, because Amen is right here, it doesn't matter, and you're forcing a tougher look than usual. And then Keldon once again has to spin, and he stops right there. Again, these are shots that he usually takes one or two more dribbles to finish. And then also the other benefit is we see Victor gets to finish off the plays with a defensive rebound, which is great. Again, we're spinning and we're just putting the shot right up because not only are you getting really played up heavily on the ball, Victor Wembanyama has a hand up right behind it, or you think he might have a hand up right behind it on half of these plays. He isn't actually needing to contest the shot because you've gotten in Şengün's head and you're making him take tougher shots on a diet that's already pretty tough and that he's already not elite at taking. And then with Durant, we're going to see a very similar thing. This is actually a play that I think really embodies the defensive coverage as well as any we've seen, because Durant starts with the ball, Şengün comes in to catch it, Steph is playing right on him, almost gets the steal, but notice Steph Castle was able to overplay and gamble and be out of position because Wemby isn't guarding Amen Thompson at all. So when Şengün catches it, not only is Steph recovering back into the play, but Victor's already in the way. And so Şengün has to give the ball up, and this is a dead possession. Not only have you now gotten the ball out of Durant's hands, you've gotten it into and immediately out of Şengün's hands to where there was not even an advantage, there was a negative advantage. The defense has already won this possession because now you're forcing Amen to try to redo it and get Durant into a tougher pull-up shot. It's a shot he can make, but it's one that they were forcing him to take. And then here, this one I love because Steph, you see the physicality, and then Victor just gets to roam in. Look where he starts this possession though. Amen's in the dunker spot. Victor's ignoring him. Devin Vassell is doing a good job of pulling in the help, but really physical, letting Wemby come in and be a game wrecker on the defensive end of the floor. And then here, Amen sets the screen. Cornet, again, completely ignoring him. Keldon does a good job fighting through it, giving Durant physicality and forcing a tough miss. This entire defensive game plan that led to the Rockets shooting 4 for 23 in the fourth quarter of a game that they were leading at halftime all stemmed from the Spurs' decision to treat Amen Thompson like, I hate to say, Ben Simmons. I think Amen Thompson has a higher ceiling than Ben Simmons, although Ben was an all-NBA player at his peak. He's already one of the very best defensive players in the world. We haven't talked about that at all because this is an offensive reel, but I think that his limitations on the offensive end are pretty crippling right now at this early stage in his career, and especially for this Rockets team, I think are really, really bad. Not only does it allow defenses to play Alperen Şengün in a way that really makes him struggle more than most coverages would, is a uniquely bad situation, but this Rockets team is generally very, very light on shooting. So it's not like Amen is the only guy that you're going to do this sort of thing with. He's the one you're going to do it with to the most extreme degree, but when Josh Okogie's on the floor, are they going to guard him? How much are they going to guard Tari Eason? Guys like that, it's going to be tough. Clint Capella's not a shooter. Jayshawn Tate, when he plays, is not a guy defenses are going to respect. And so when you have all of these relative non-shooting threats, and then this one guy who is a humongously important piece of your team that is an uber non-shooting threat, as the season's gone on, I really can't help but feel that this Rockets context is about as suboptimal for Amen Thompson as we could ever possibly ask for. And I hate to say that because this is a really fun team to watch. When they were healthy, I think they had championship aspirations, but without Fred VanVleet and now without Steven Adams for the season, I think their title window is shut. Now, I remain an Amen Thompson true believer. I have been since the moment he entered the league. I am in love with his athleticism and his potential as a true wrecking ball on both ends of the floor, but assuming nothing changes or until something changes with both the specific skills he has and the team context around him, I'm afraid that this concept right here might become a running theme throughout the rest of his career. It's certainly something that I will be keeping my eyes on moving forward, and the next time you watch a Rockets game, I hope that it's something that you now keep an eye out for as well. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have a great day.